And we return on Southeast Texas Weekly. We've talked a lot about Donald Trump and the sensation he's evidently, according to the polls, showing around the country. Let's move on to Hillary Clinton for just a brief couple of seconds. We are joined by W.L. Pate, Beaumont City Councilman. Good to see
here.
you, man. Also, Michael Lindsay with Lindsay and Parsons, and our friend Godfrey Leggett, Democratic activist.
Happy to be here.
Good to be here, Kevin.
Thanks very much for being here. And when we talk about Hillary Clinton, we talk about this matter of whether classified material was allowed to be in a position in which the information on the emails held by the then U.S. Secretary of State were in a position to even be able to be out there publicly. They were classified. Is it not a disturbing situation for you when you hear these stories about this?
I think it's a disturbing situation to talk about emails anywhere. I mean, there is not a data system in the country that hasn't been breached by the Chinese, the communists, the Europeans.
Starting to see a lot of that.
The one thing I think you can say is that apparently Hillary's email was not breached. So maybe it's more secure than the rest of the countries. Maybe we ought to be looking to Hillary to get some advice on how to upgrade our security.
That's a good point
There you
Mike.
have it. She's WL.
Well,
she's,
the thing is,
she's a security professional.
She managed to be Secretary of State for several years and never handled any classified information. That was what was amazing. I mean, honest to goodness, I'm thinking they were just saying, look, let's come over, yoga. We'll talk about yoga, we'll have coffee.
Personal stuff.
We don't need to be talking about Benghazi or anything like that because that would be classified. We'll talk on the phone about that. No emails at all.
55,000 emails in
None
question.
of them had any classified information on it.
I may be wrong, WL, but I don't think that she used only her personal email. I think she used government email services as well. And she probably did have several classified communications on the government email system.
Well,
but like Michael says, so what? It's all been breached.
Did she not knowingly transmit information that she didn't have a right as a public official?
I may be wrong, but I think some of what they're calling classified information wasn't classified at the time.
Well, here's the real issue. Petraeus, General Petraeus, who headed up the CIA, was literally the Supreme Allied Commander. He was the one that came up with the surge that basically allowed us to secure Iraq. Mm-hmm. He was charged and found guilty of handling confidential information that nobody saw.
Not
except,
even secret, classified.
That's right. It's confidential. You've got confidential, secret, and top secret. He was handling confidential in his own home, not that was distributed anywhere, not that was anybody had access to.
But we're not talking about emailing the stuff, okay?
Well, we're talking about information that has to be secure. I mean, honest to goodness, when you go through, to be an Army officer, you got to go through NSA, like I did, to get a security clearance.
And if you've got a Q clearance, you're not supposed to leave your briefcase open so your family or anybody else can see the stuff.
But the Q clearance is a lot higher than confidential. Confidential means it might have some impact. Mm-hmm. He got caught having it in his files at home when he was talking to that woman who was writing a book.
I think that was the majority of it. He was telling her about
well,
things
she
that were
also
going
had
on.
a top secret security clearance.
Well, she had.
Both of them did. That's the deal.
But we're not talking about his email.
Right.
We're not talking
We're
about his
talking
email.
about the information. And the point I was making earlier, how were they transmitting any of this information? 55,000, supposedly none of it was classified. I find that hard to believe. And there's nothing right now that says anything about another government server.
Yeah, and in keeping with the point that you just made, WL, is that not a question of judgment on her part that it could potentially be out there
Nobody has
publicly?
proven that any information of any consequence has leaked to anybody in this whole mess.
You know, Petraeus
I
is
did
subject
not
to
have
the
sex with that woman,
Well,
Miss Lewinsky.
That was the other Clinton.
Petraeus is subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and Hillary is not in the military. She is the Secretary of State, and the rules that apply to military and civilians are different.
Yes.
However, what they went after him about, the issue with the confidential information was handling secure information.
As it violated the Code of Uniform Military
It-
Justice.
But it
Hillary's not
also,
under that.
Judgment, though,
but what she did violated our criminal laws.
No. And nobody's proved that either, W.L.
Nobody has proved that.
Well, they didn't.
FBI sources have said they believe that it looks indictable.
Look, they've been beating on Hillary about Benghazi ever since Benghazi happened. They haven't proved a darn thing about Benghazi that she did anything wrong. They haven't been able to indict her. They spent months researching it. The same thing is going to happen with this. It's going to, it's going to blow over.
See, with all due respect to these guys, I love them, and you know I do. When
But-
you look at what Hillary does and the way she just blows it off, like, hey, what are you? That's the same old right-wing conspiracy.
What harm did she cause
She headed up the bimbo
what
eruptions.
harm did she cause
in-
the United States, W.L.?
Well, here's the thing. You don't know what she caused.
I don't know what the
harm.
Chinese sucked out of our email servers up in Washington
But,
from everybody either.
Hey, listen, you don't know.
I don't know,
But
that's right.
they do. And I guarantee you, there isn't any way you can handle 55,000 emails and none of them
Does that sound reasonable?
are classified.
Post-World War II, they used to send couriers out with, briefcases chained to their wrists. That's how they moved secret information
Does his
around.
last point sound reasonable, that you could have that many, and you have it on your own private server?
Yeah.
That it's reasonable if you have it on your own private server and you have that many emails, and you have that many emails going to the U.S. Secretary of State that there could plausibly
Talking about
be
yoga and wedding plans.
Well, there's probably thousands of innocuous emails on her server, just like everybody has.
Except she doesn't know how to use it.
Oh, she knows how to use it.
She said she didn't know how to use it.
So are you arguing that
Yeah.
she was disengaged as
She probably doesn't know
Secretary
how
of
to
State?
erase a hard drive, but she can use email.
You're arguing the point that she was disengaged as U.S. Secretary of State and she wasn't really doing that much business for the government during her time in office? Is that what you're making the case for?
No, I'm saying that she probably handled a lot of sensitive information.
And she's turned over a ton of emails, messages
But in all
that
likelihood,
have been printed.
not classified or classified top secret.
And we continue with the Donald when we come back right here on Southeast Texas Weekly.